Hello everyone. Alrighty, we're on the last video here for the endocrine system where we're going to go over all the major selected hormones, their sources and their effects. Now, throughout all the examples in the videos previous to this, I hinted at many of these, but this is going to go through them all. The first thing I have here is this table of endocrine glands and their major hormones. So over here, you have the endocrine gland itself. You notice there's 6 hormones that are released from the anterior pituitary and 2 hormones released from the posterior pituitary. So 8 hormones in total released from the pituitary gland. So growth hormone, prolactin, thyroid stimulating hormone, adrenocorticotropic hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, antidiuretic hormone, and oxytocin. And here you can see most of these are protein. So glycoprotein, peptide, and then that's thyroid. All of them are amino acid based in the end. So here is the table that goes over them, and then I'll be jumping back and forth here. So here's the hypothalamus and pituitary gland. So hypothalamus, of course, is the region up here, and in the hypothalamus you have all these little nuclei that do the releasing. So then down here you have the posterior and the anterior pituitary. This one's showing examples of antidiuretic hormone or oxytocin release, which is from the posterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary is a little different. Don't worry about the pathway that things take. So here a neuron actually sends the signal down and releases the hormone at the end down here, which gets taken up into the vasculature and then sent out throughout the body. Over here, you would have hormones that release here, get picked up into the blood vessels, come down into the anterior pituitary, cause hormones to be released from the cells in the anterior pituitary, and then those get taken up into the blood and out. So slightly different mode of release, but we don't need to know that differences in this course here, so don't worry about that too much. The infundibulum is a fun word for the little stalk here that connects the hypothalamus to the pituitary glands. So now a little bit about what each of these hormones do. We'll come back up to the table here. So starting with the anterior pituitary, growth hormone helps you grow. Growth of body tissue. So that increases in amount during growth and development. Prolactin promotes milk production. Usually you have prolactin inhibiting hormone that's being released, which inhibits the release of prolactin. That's known as dopamine. And during pregnancy and after birth, that prolactin inhibiting hormone gets inhibited, and then that causes the release of prolactin. Thyroid stimulating hormone. So there's thyroid stimulating hormone. Let's draw this out. Released from the hypothalamus that causes the release of thyroid releasing hormone from the pituitary gland. And then you get the release of the thyroid hormone that can be either T3 or T4 from the actual thyroid. So you see the thyroid down here has T4 and T3. It's just mainly it's T3 or T4 is talking about how many iodides are on that particular thyroid hormone, but T3 is the active form, and here T4 and iodine is removed and becomes T3 once at the cell. But you might hear of thyroxine if someone's talking about the thyroid hormone. So that one is stimulating basal metabolic rate, so increasing the metabolic rate of your cells, the energy expenditure of your cells. But here, thyroid stimulating hormone, so a hormone causes the release of another hormone. So it stimulates the release of a releasing hormone, which causes then the release of the thyroid hormone. Prolactin here, there was prolactin inhibiting hormone, which inhibits the release of prolactin. So you see how hormones can affect the release of other hormones, is the long story short here. So next up, we have adrenocorticotropic hormone. Adrenocorticotropic hormone, or CRH, so CRH, corticotropic releasing hormone, causes the release of ACTH, which travels then to the adrenal cortex, so hence adrenocorticotropic hormone, to cause the release of your corticosteroids in your adrenal cortex. So those are your glucocorticoids, your gonatocorticoids, and your mineral corticoids. So aldosterone, um, glucocorticoids like corticosteroids, and then some gonadocorticoids as well. So we'll talk about those a little bit later when we get down here to the adrenal cortex. I might as well talk about them now. So for the adrenal cortex, aldosterone is released. So these are steroid-based hormones, which they can target a bunch of cells. So aldosterone causes increased blood sodium levels compared to antidiuretic hormone here, which increase water reabsorption. So we talked about that example in the last video. So those two are kind of working to regulate homeostasis of your blood volume and blood pressure. And then we have your other parts of so cortisol, corticosterone, or cortisone. So your corticosteroids. These we also talked about these last video. These cause an increase in blood glucose levels. There are highest amounts in the morning. If you're stressed, that causes these to be increased in as well, and you don't want those to be at high levels all day. So stress causes the release of CRH and ACTH here, which then can enhance these steroid hormone release. So it's not necessarily the best thing, and stress can be the root of a lot of problems. So there's ACTH, there's TSH. You see they all have abbreviations too. And then we have follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. These are released from the anterior pituitary. So you have I'm writing behind my head. We have GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone, which is released from the hypothalamus, goes to the pituitary, and causes the release of FSH or LH. So gonadotropin releasing hormone causes the release of the gonadotropins. These then travel to the gonads. So at the testes and the ovaries, they then lead, so testes and ovaries here lead to the production of testosterone or estrogen and progesterone here. They assist in either spermatogenesis, which is the formation of sperm, or follicular development, which is the production of the oocyte or egg in females. So here, also testosterone and estrogen play roles throughout the body for metabolic rate, secondary sex characteristics, and those sorts of things in each sex. Alrighty. And then, so that's FSH and LH. We'll talk about those more when we get to the reproductive system. We talked about antidiuretic hormone. Next up, we have oxytocin. So oxytocin, we talked about this one before, is that positive feedback that stimulates uterine contractions during childbirth. So then thyroid has thyroid hormones, T3 and T4 for basal metabolic rate. Thyroid hormone also releases another hormone called calcitonin. Calcitonin responds to high blood calcium levels. So if blood calcium is too high, these respond. Usually your blood calcium only gets high in dangerous situations where you're having kidney function issues and things like that. So typically calcitonin isn't needed to be released in your body, and usually it's only given pharmacologically if you're admitted to the hospital and they find you have high blood calcium levels, because that suggests like renal function failure. And then along with calcium, let's say you have low calcium in the blood. Calcium is really important in the blood for all your muscle contractions, your heart to work, signaling for your nervous system, and let's just say a lot of importance. So this parathyroid hormone actually targets your digestive system, your kidneys, and most importantly, activates these cells called osteoclasts. So osteoclasts, which demineralize your bone matrix. They eat your bone. It sounds like a bad thing, but your bones constantly go through this remodeling, and your biggest storage of calcium is in your bones. So these cells cause the release of calcium from your bones. Don't worry, when calcium levels get back high, you will redeposit that along areas of stress on your bones. And then in the middle, the adrenal medulla here, the middle of the adrenal gland, we have the release of epinephrine, norepinephrine. Some of these, sometimes you see these abbreviated NE and E. This is adrenaline or noradrenaline. So this is your fight or flight response and your sympathetic response. And that all travels throughout your cardiovascular system and gives you the body-wide effects. Pineal gland here secretes melatonin. Melatonin regulates your sleep cycle. So some people take melatonin to help them go to sleep. Just be careful doing that. Pancreas We talked about insulin and glucagon. Insulin is released by beta islet cells to reduce blood glucose levels, whereas glucagon is released by alpha islet cells to increase blood glucose levels. And then we talked about testosterone, estrogens, and progesterones. So we talked about pituitary gland and hypothalamus. Here's what, so thyroid and a parathyroid gland. So here you have, we talked about this. This is just showing it in image here. So hypothalamus releases thyroid releasing hormone, and then thyroid stimulating hormone is then released by the anterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary travels to the thyroid, which is a butterfly-shaped gland right on top of the trachea. Inside the thyroid stimulating hormone stimulates the production of T3 and T4, which are thyroxine and triiodo something up here. Triiodo thyronine. Had a tongue tie there. So T3 and T4. And then those then can target all cells in the body and increase the metabolic rate and also increase your body temperature as well. And then they have a negative feedback, which shut off TRH and TSH release. So there's the thyroid, then the parathyroid gland. So also, so these are called follicle cells. There's also parafollicular cells found in the thyroid, and those are what release calcitonin. Calcitonin reduces blood calcium level release. So here it's talking about calcitonin being released if blood calcium levels are too high. But if blood calcium levels drop, which is typically what happens, you release PTH, which is the parathyroid hormone. So on the back of the thyroid gland, you have 4 little spots, which are the parathyroid hormones, parathyroid glands, which release the parathyroid hormone, and that targets the kidney to increase calcium reabsorption. So here, effects on the kidneys, increase osteoclast activity here on the bone. That gets more calcium going back into the blood and also increases calcium reabsorption along with calcitriol which is released from the skin actually in the digestive system. So all of that will eventually then increase blood calcium levels and get it to where it needs to be. Here it's showing that adrenal cortex. So the medulla here, this is where you release norepinephrine, epinephrine, and then you have the cortex itself on the outside, which has a few different layers to it. They're called the zonas. Don't worry about the different zonas, but they release your mineralocorticoids, which are aldosterone, which increase sodium intake and reuptake. You can bring in more sodium, you bring in more water, you increase blood pressure. Your glucocorticoids, so your cortisol, corticosterone, cortisone, and your androgens or your gonatocorticoids, which then eventually become either testosterone or estrogen modulators. And then we talked about pineal gland up in the table, releasing melatonin. Pancreas here having endocrine and exocrine function. So the alpha islet cells and the beta islet cells releasing either glucagon for the alpha and insulin for the beta. And they then travel out through the digestive system, will get taken up into the blood, the cardiovascular system, and then have their effects on glucose. There are also digestive enzymes that are released from the pancreas that get released out here and help digestion. Those are called the SNR cells. And then there are the gonadal and placental hormones. So testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, human chorionic gonadotropin, so HCG, and so forth. And then besides that, outside of this table, there are a lot of different hormones. Your gut brain has a lot of hormones, cholecystokinin, secretin, and things like that in it, gastrin. All that is pretty much monitoring what's going on in your digestive system. Your heart releases something called atrial natriuretic peptide, which helps reduce blood volume. Your kidneys release things like renin, which ends up targeting blood pressure to help for angiotensin aldosterone, so it ends up causing release of aldosterone. Skeleton can release some hormones as well. Adipose tissue releasing leptin informs the body that it can release estrogen and has enough energy storage for pregnancy. So that's really important in women to have a high enough leptin levels. Skin can release some hormones for vitamin D production and things like that. Thymus here, this is important for the immune system. So there are some specific hormones involved in there for the immune response, and your liver can also release some hormones as well. So long story short, there is a lot of homeostasis going on in your body, and doing this justice in a 15-minute video here was not easy, and I know there's a lot going on. But if you have questions, definitely reach out and let me know. This is a table that's in the book, so you have this table 17.2 if you want to refer to it. But yeah, if you have questions, definitely let me know on this chapter here. But if not, this is the last video for this chapter itself. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day. All right, bye-bye.